Serious, has anyone been really drunk or on drugs when a natural disaster hit? How did you handle it? I was drunk during the 2010 Chile earthquake. Nothing interesting happened. I just kept drinking and I went to sleep. The next morning I realized what had happened. I was one of the few people in NYC who got pretty fricked by Hurricane Irene a few years ago. I had just fixed my roof, repainted, and replaced my furniture when Hurricane Sandy came along. I put down a tarp, got drunk as frick, and watched Ghostbusters. My ceiling was falling down around me and I was just like, yeah, whatever. More whiskey I guess. This painted a hilarious image in my head. Literally everyone I know and myself have pretty much gotten S-faced during every single hurricane that has hit us here in southern Louisiana. The only time it was ever an issue was once when a tree busted the roof at my parents', but it's not like I could go out there and try to fix it when the winds are 60 miles per hour. As a native Floridian, we get blackout drunk during every hurricane. Hurricane Sandy turned into a 3-day binge for my college campus. It was fun. My brother lives on the Gulf Coast and he always throws cane party when one is supposed to make landfall close by. His first priority is to have his beer fridge connected to the generator. Can't have warm beer. It's always a good time. Except when a tree limb almost took out my car and his front porch. I've been pretty baked during a few earthquakes. Once I was making popcorn and I forgot, and I thought I was being bombed. I could see you calm before the popping. Then when it starts, you duck. Then laugh about it. Still funny though. I took some shrooms about 8 years ago when I knew we were going to get hit with a blizzard. Not really a natural disaster, but everything was shut down for a week. Anyway, I spent hours making snow angels and snowmen all next to each other and then I watched them fight the snowflake army. Pretty cool. That sounds like it was so much fun. I was belligerently drunk and pretty high when I found out Hurricane Sandy destroyed my childhood home. I was at my now ex-GF house when my sister called me to tell the news. I just broke down crying. The same thing happened to my dad. The house he grew up in was swept out to sea. I'm sorry that happened to you. I was frying on mushrooms when that tsunami hit in Japan. I was in my bed with the TV on watching the ceiling melt and the TV cut to breaking news footage of the disaster. I ran to our basement to tell my little sister and her friend, but they were way more scared of my giant pupils than they were of that tsunami. I also don't live anywhere near Japan. This got way funnier when you said you weren't in Japan. I live in Oklahoma and a tornado was supposed to touch down within a mile of friend's house that we were chilling at. But News 9 was essentially telling us to get in our shelter or die. So my buddy and I cleared our stash of drugs and watched from his front porch a tornado touch down a half-mile from his house. We both took a lot of drugs while this tornado wreaked havoc. Pretty good times. You're a special kind of crazy. I was high on drugs and I was in bed and suddenly felt my bed shaking in San Francisco, and I saw the walls room sway back and forth. I sat in my bed for a bit and thought to myself, wow, either I'm having a really good trip right now or there's an earthquake happening right now. After things calmed down I came out to my living room and asked, hey, was there just an earthquake? Yes, there was an earthquake. Don't know whether I should be pee at my dealer or be more concerned of my calmness during an earthquake. Dude, you can't be upset about anything on drugs. The first time I took acid, it was right in the midst of Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey. There's a park on my street and we went into the middle of it and stared as the gusts of powerful winds made the huge trees sway like twigs. The colorful explosions of transformers peppered the sky with green light. It made us feel so tiny and vulnerable. But gosh, was it beautiful. Dangerous, but would do it all again in a heartbeat. If you consider a family member having a heart attack, then yes. There I was one day up in college on shrooms when I get a phone call from my dad telling me that my mom just had a heart attack and is currently in surgery. Spent a good hour, but it felt like eternity, vividly seeing my mother die over and over until I get another call saying she was okay. I have never taken shrooms again. Hurricane approaching. My college roommates thought it was a good time to try LSD since school was cancelled. Also had a leftover keg on hand just in case. I remained sober. They laughed. They cried. They said epic a lot. They had blown minds. Tree came through the window and they ran and screamed like little girls. They were football players. From my observations, I wouldn't recommend combining hurricanes and acid. What do you mean? That sounds awesome. I'm British and was visiting NYC when Hurricane Sandy hit back in 2012. We went inland just before it hit and stayed at the Thayer Hotel in West Point Military Academy. Got thoroughly sloshed in the bar with some old folks who were taken out of the local care home because of the danger. This sounds like the start to a joke. A Brit and a crowd of old folks walked into a bar. I took mushrooms right before a flood happened. I was away from danger, but I saw someone's car get sucked into an underground parking garage with the driver still inside. I also remember seeing rabbits getting stranded on logs as the water enveloped their forest. I wouldn't exactly say that I was frightened, but I was definitely unsettled. Whenever I do mushroom now, I really respect how powerful water is. During Hurricane Sandy, a group of my friends came over to eat some mushrooms since we had nothing better to do and our whole state was basically shut down. It was awesome. We figured at some point we were going to lose power, but actually didn't, which was nice. The only scary part was when we, for some reason, thought it was smart to go adventure off into the woods near my place during the worst part of the storm. A huge tree branch fell within 10 feet of us and we decided it probably wasn't a very brilliant idea to be in the woods during a hurricane while on psychedelics. I was stoned out of my mind at a friend's house when a huge storm hit. I freaked out and ran downstairs into a bathroom because my parents had always told me to do that. After braving up, I ran out to grab a drink and food, then ran back in and spent the night curled up on the floor. In the morning, my friend asked me why I had ran downstairs whenever he turned rain noises on his phone to help him fall asleep. That phone must have some kick-ass speakers. When Hurricane Ike hit Houston in 2008, I was in a dorm room in college. We bought a keg and threw a party. We had about 30 people or drink all night and then sleep in various places around the room. At various times we'd go outside, and it would be like being inside a wind tunnel. I was high on M when the Northridge earthquake hit Los Angeles in the 90s. Transformers blew up, so it was total darkness. That's when I started seeing the shadow people. M. Nothing too crazy, but I was pretty drunk on my honeymoon down in the Dominican Republic when Hurricane Irene hit. It was an all-inclusive resort and we had been there for a couple days, so I had gotten to know the bartender. When the hotel management slipped a warning under our door to stay in our room, I went down to the bar to refill our last drinks until the hurricane passed. The bartender handed me a full bottle of Jack and some Mamajuani, and my wife and I proceeded to get crappy drunk as the hurricane destroyed the beautiful resort. I got laid too. So all in all, I think we handled it pretty well. Wasted during Katrina. It was awesome. I was on vacation in California drinking with a bunch of college buddies when a decent, I believe it was a 5.3, earthquake hit. Since we are all from the Midwest, it was the first time we had experienced anything like it and a lot of us were confused. Plus we were all about 3 solid hours of drinking in. Now, there was a fancy end on one of the towel racks in our hotel that we were using as a bottle opener. Since all of the booze was in the tub on ice, college style. So a friend goes in, grabs a beer, and tries to open it on the towel rack. Misses it. Thinks, I don't remember being this drunk. Tries again. Misses. Tries and finally hears us all getting loud and scared out in the room. He walks out and we have to tell him it's an earthquake. People are freaking out since we're 8 stories up. And then he laughs and just says, "Ooh, I just thought I was getting the spins." We watched everyone panic and went back to drinking. Was camping on the beach with 4 friends. We will call them Jim, John, James, and Jack. Now Jim was the driver. He was a dealer and brought weed and lad with us. John is a redneck who brought the gun and alcohol. James was addicted to painkillers and Jack was a pothead friend of ours. To get to the beach we had to take a ferry that only runs from 10 AM to 6 PM. So, we get on the island, we're stoned, stop at the only general store and load up on alcohol and food and go to set up camp. Jump forward a few hours and all the tents are up and dinner is cooking. James has already started popping drugs and John is drunk. Jim, Jack and I have all taken 4 hits of LSD and everything is going smooth. Until Jim checks his phone and sees that we are 4 hours late for a tropical storm / flood warning. So as the night progresses and we all fall into our minds and drunken stupors, the storm is visibly growing and getting closer. By 2 AM we are in the eye of the storm and trying our best to pack up and figure out where to stay while tripping balls. We eventually make it to a beach house under construction and camp inside. But not before the 3 of you who are tripping run off into the rain and disappear for an hour. It was life-changing. I can only speak for my own emotions during the event, but I somehow felt like I was connecting with nature. Drawing patterns in the sand and staring into the eye of a storm while the effects of the drugs enhance the vision and feeling. Many funny occurrences happened in between, and if you all want to hear those, just let me know. I live in New Orleans and was here for Hurricane Isaac. It was one of the greatest weeks of my life. I spent the week getting stoned, drinking, reading and having sex with a FWB. Was living on the 2nd floor of a house, living in uptown. No true flood worries, and we were well stocked with food, bottled water, etc. The worst bit was when the power went out and all of my devices lost battery, namely my Kindle. I even got a good bit of luck. Left my truck out in the street where it was normally parked, and we put my brother's car in the driveway where it was safer. A tree fell on my brother's car 3 days into the storm. I was stoned during an earthquake once. Granted, it wasn't a big one, but it was noticeable enough I had to stop laying down that sweet DPS on my guild's Karaz and run to get somewhere more safe than my desk in case the building came down. Few years ago I was going to school in coastal Maine. I was stoned off my ass staring at my fish tank when an earthquake hit. I thought it was my 300-pound neighbor fricking around with his roommates. I remember just feeling kind of annoyed that the fat bastard was scaring my fish. Southern California, at a rave when an earthquake hit, rolling on MDMA and noticed all the fixtures, light poles etc. were swaying. Initially, I thought it was the MDMA, but then the music came to an abrupt stop. Everyone was calm, except the DJ. He was freaking out, telling people to be calm. Chants of where's the music began to start. No one cared. All the lights came on and we were ordered to leave the building, single file. We all went to the parking lot and continued the party there. People just used their car stereos for music. We were eventually forced to leave about an hour after that. My friend was really traumatized, so I spent most of my time trying to keep him calm. They closed that venue sometime later and read about how the roof collapsed on that place. Mastodome, if anyone is familiar with the early 2000s rave scene. Luckily, there was no one inside. You have met Cat Pope. Do not leave without commenting amen. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.